Good morning and welcome to this sunshiny Thursday at 10 a.m. And I'm excited to talk to you today about non-traditional occupations, non-traditional fields in Perkins V, and what is new. My name is Amy Julian, and I'm the director for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. As we start this webinar, there's a few housekeeping items I want to go through with you. The first being that all of you are in listen-only mode. I will be pausing as we go through the webinar, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand, post those in the chat box, or post those in the question pane. Any of those options are viable options to have your voice heard during this time. In addition to that, I'm just going to be walking through some fun stuff when it comes to Perkins. Many of you heard me speak last week at the PAC meeting, Perkins Administrator Cohort meeting, and I do want to just kind of expand on what's new for non-trad within that scope. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So who is ICSPS, the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support? And though many of you do know us, I'm going to walk through it as I always do. ICSPS creates, supports, and delivers professional development for career, technical, and adult education professionals across Illinois. ICSPS provides technical assistance, develops publications, facilitates program improvement strategies for our partners as they relate to transition, recruitment, retention, and completion. I like to say that ICSPS, in a nutshell, is equity, access, transition, and any of those things are things that we focus on. Some of you might have just seen me recently at the WIOA Summit, and again, that's some other work that we do around equity, access, and transition. So Perkins V, and I know many people have said this, and I see Tasha's online, and I know she just presented on this yesterday, but Perkins V is the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act. It is being affectionately named Perkins V, though Perkins is not actually named in the title, but because we are Perkins 1 through 4, I think DC and those in Congress just kind of liked that name. If you have any interest in understanding why Perkins is named Perkins, that's a whole nother webinar, but I'd be delighted to have that conversation with you. So what does Perkins V say, and really what are we looking at when we're looking at Perkins V as a law, especially when it comes to special populations? So the purpose of this act is to develop more fully the academic knowledge and technical and employability skills of secondary education students and post-secondary students who elect to enroll in career and technical education programs and programs of study by. So what are the things we're going to do to support that purpose? We're going to build on the efforts of states and localities to develop challenging academic and career and technical standards. We're going to promote the development of services and activities that integrate academic, career, technical instruction that link secondary to post-secondary. There is such a focus on Perkins V, and I take every opportunity to say that, around secondary and post-secondary collaboration. So we really want to see that collaboration, coordination, and communication happening between secondary and post-secondary in Perkins V. It also increases state and local flexibility in providing services and activities designed to develop, implement, and improve CTE. There is a whole list of things that they talk about what they can do and what local funds are, and we'll explore those a little bit more as we go into NTO. Another purpose is disseminating national research and providing professional development and technical assistance that will improve current technical education programs of study, services, and activities. We're going to also be conducting technical assistance that promotes leadership and professional development to improve the quality of CT teachers, faculty, administrators, and counselors, and providing individuals with opportunities and skills to keep the United States competitive. This last one in orange, again, very important when you're talking about special populations, is that idea that we are now a purpose of the law. Special populations has been named in the law since 1984. It had line items in 1984, in 1990, and in 1998. Those line items were then removed, and there's been some transition there around the focus of special populations, but we're back, and it's a big deal, and it does really meet with the needs and the idea of where the country is headed. So this last purpose, again, is near and dear to those of us who serve special populations by increasing the employment opportunities for populations who are chronically unemployed or underemployed, including individuals with disabilities, individuals from economically disadvantaged families, out-of-work individuals, and youth who are in or have aged out of the foster care system, and homeless individuals. We have a lot of new special populations, and we're going to touch through those a little briefly. These are the special populations that everyone knows and loves and we've had since 1984. Single parents, pregnant and parenting teens, displaced homemakers, though that term is a little dated, and we have acknowledged that with Perkins V. Individuals with disabilities, both cognitive and physical, English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, and students pursuing non-traditional occupations for their gender. Again, the only change to this list occurred in the 1998 legislation when, because of No Child Left Behind, the federal government believed that we would not need to have academically disadvantaged as a special population any longer because, again, no child was to be left behind post NCLB. That didn't happen, but that's a whole nother webinar too. So Perkins V special populations are, you're going to see a lot of similarities here. Individuals with disabilities, both cognitive and physical. Individuals from economically disadvantaged families, including low-income youth and adults. Individuals preparing for non-traditional fields, and that's what we're going to explore a little bit further today. Single parents, including pregnant and parenting teens, and out-of-work individuals. But we're not done. I know that says 5, and we just said we only had 6, but we have more. English language learners has now been changed to English learners. We also are now serving homeless youth, youth who are in or have aged out of the foster care system, and youth with a parent who is a member of the armed forces or is on active duty. Do note the community colleges do serve veterans and have a robust system to be serving veterans, but Perkins can be used to support veterans if they are in the special populations and going into CTE, but it is not designed specifically for veterans because there is funding around that. Just kind of like to say that too. So one of the new terms is out-of-work individuals, and what does that mean? This term really does replace the displaced homemaker, which again was somebody who, because of situations, had found themselves that had taken the career of being a homemaker, and then due to divorce or death or whatever lovely circumstance existed, they were now displaced. And that term came around in 1984 and had stuck with this legislation, really not to be changed at any time until now. And so now we have the term out-of-work individual, which does better align with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So out-of-work individual does mean an individual who is displaced, who is a displaced homemaker, as defined in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. This individual has worked primarily without remuneration to care for the home and family, and for that reason has diminished marketable skills. They are a parent whose youngest dependent child will become ineligible to receive assistance under Part A of Title IV of the Social Security Act no later than 2 years after the date in which that parent applies for assistance under such title. That's going to be a fun one. And then is unemployed or underemployed and is experiencing difficulty in obtaining or upgrading employment. Please note, an out-of-work individual is not a combination of all of these. It is any one of those bullets does qualify individual as a special population under out-of-work individual. So with that, let's take 1 second and see if there are any questions, comments, or anything before we deeply dive into what non-traditional field or what the changes are to non-traditional field for Perkins V. Again, if you would like to raise your hand or post anything in the chat or question pane, I'm happy to address any questions. All right, seeing none, we're going to proceed forward. So we're going to explore what non-traditional field really means. And when we look at the synopsis of Perkins V, little slip there. When we look at the synopsis of Perkins V, and one of the things that's really important is Perkins V was passed with an overwhelming bipartisan support at the time, with economic issues and labor market needs are at the forefront of policymakers' interests. If you look at this law and you compare it to the WIOA law, which of course I do because that's fun, you're going to see a lot of similar themes. You're going to see a lot of similar responses to issues, and you're also going to see a call for partnership, a call for those systems to work together. The WIOA system should feed into, be that first rung in some areas, into that CTE Perkins system. And so those individuals should be, their success is employment And let me be clear, it is sustainable employment, not just a job, but a job that will actually be a sustainable wage. And then in addition to that, post-secondary education, which leads to a sustainable wage. So they are now a pathway into Perkins, so that's important to be aware of. In addition to that, the reauthorization process was driven largely by a desire to ensure that students are prepared for 21st century careers for both their individual benefit and so that business and industry have a skilled workforce that they need to stay economically competitive. If you recall from the purposes, one of the things that was really fleshed out is providing our students with the skills they need to make the U.S. competitive. So that is something that we're really working on enhancing in Perkins 5. And in addition to doing that, we want to broaden those areas for other students to consider non-traditional occupations. Under the law, one of the things that we say is a purpose is to prepare students for non-traditional fields and programs for special populations. There are required use of the leadership fund, so you're going to see both the State Board of Education and the Community College Board allocating funds on non-traditional occupations. You have seen our center do a lot of professional development on that. We're going to see more in 2020. The Non-Traditional Summit is something that we've had for a couple years now, where we bring in the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity and really talk about and unpack those ideas for special populations and how to serve specifically non-traditional students in the area of STEM. We'll talk about that a little further, but we'll move forward at this time. So the new definition for non-traditional fields is the one that says the term non-traditional fields means occupation or fields of work such as careers in computer science, technology, and other current and emerging high-skill occupations for which individuals from one gender comprises less than 25% of the gender employed in each such occupation or field of work. So the big discussion or the big fun point there is that there's a lot of discussion about whether or not this is a complete rewrite, and it's really not. I'll read you what the old definition was, and the term non-traditional field means occupations or field of work including, you can read along that it's not too different, including careers in computer science, technology, and other current and emerging high school occupations in which one gender or comprises of 25% or less of. It's basically not a big change. One of the things that is interesting for this law is they now kind of name some fields. They say specifically computer science. They talk about, which they did in 2006, but I don't know that we really paid that much attention to because it's getting a lot of grumbling in the local areas that they're saying computer science, they're saying technology, they're saying STEM in a roundabout way. So that's our definition. That's our new definition. But that's not the end of the webinar, or else, that'd just be a fun 13-minute webinar. The next part is also important. We're changing and evolving our core indicators. So all of you know and love the 5P1, 5P2, or 5S1, 5S2, depending on if you're in the secondary or post-secondary level. Those have now been combined. So the core indicator for Perkins or NTO, and I do wonder if we're going to change that because there is a big emphasis in this particular legislation to call it non-traditional fields instead of non-traditional occupations. So I don't know if we'll change that to the NTF, not quite as swanky there, but you never know. But the core indicator is the percentage of CTE concentrators in career and technical education program of study that leads to a non-traditional field. So that's what the core indicator says. That's what the state's supposed to be looking at. But a big part of that definition is the CTE concentrator. So I know you're sitting there and you're asking yourself, did the federal government take that extra step and define CTE concentrator for us? And you will be excited to know that we did. Not we, I had nothing to do with it, but it did happen. So CTE concentrator, as defined in the law, is at least at the secondary level. Let's unpack those both individually. At the secondary level, a student who is served by an eligible recipient who has completed at least 2 courses in a single career and technical education program or program of study. So that is our definition now for a CTE concentrator. At the secondary level, so your high schools, is a secondary school student who is an eligible recipient who has completed at least 2 courses in a single career and technical education program or program of study. So what that means is that they have to be in that same program of study. That does not mean that they get to take Introduction to Foods and then Ag 101 and they're a CTE concentrator, because that's not in the same program of study. Everybody clear? Okay. At the post-secondary level, a student who is enrolled in an eligible recipient, which is the community college system, all 48 community colleges are eligible recipients at the post-secondary level in the state of Illinois, who has earned at least 12 credits within a career and technical education program or a program of study. Second bullet there, completed such a program if the program comprises of fewer than 12 credits or equivalent in total. So the 12 credits is kind of a nice window there, but we do have some programs that encompass fewer than 12 credits, so they did allow that as well. So those are our definitions as a CTE concentrator, and that really helps us understand how the core indicator, which is the percentage of CTE concentrators in a career and technical education program, that leads to a non-traditional field. So how many CTE concentrators are you going to have in your nursing programs, in your welding programs? Because again, you're looking at those students who comprise 25% or less of the individuals employed in that occupation. Now, the one thing that has not changed, which is working on changing, but because it's only 2019 has not changed, is the SIP codes that align with the list of what are non-traditional occupations. So those will not be changed. I'm going to say this more accurately. The conversation to change those will not be starting to take place until 2020. The idea is that they change every 10 years, which for some reason they felt was a timely manner to change our SIP codes, which is our classification for instructional program codes. However, those conversations have started to take place, because if you look at the world today, let's say we're in 2020, let's kind of roll ourselves into the next year, and then you look at the world in 2010, a little bit different. But if you're looking for that SIP list, that is available on our website, on the ICSPS website. It's also available on the NAEP website, and I believe there's a link to it on the ICCB website as well. So what are some other fun things that really will impact NTO? But before we get into that, let me back up here and let me see if there are any questions, any comments. We do have a question. Oh, Philip, I kind of addressed that. So the list of non-traditional fields has not changed. And that is available, thank you, Philip, that is available on our website. It is also a printed document, and I think we might have a couple still here if you wanted to email me and I can mail those to you. However, we are not reprinting at this time because the list should be being updated by the federal government next year. In addition to that, you can look for at the ICCB website, they have some great resources on what programs are offered at what community colleges. So that being our only question, I don't think we have any hands up. We're going to move forward and look at some other impacts. And this is something that's pretty exciting. Universal design has been around for quite some time. We have really looked at the way in which universal design can help educational classrooms be not only just more effective, but also be intuitive for our students. So the term universal design for learning means it's a scientifically validated framework for guiding educational practices that provide flexibility in the ways information is presented, in the ways students respond or demonstrate knowledge and skills, and in the way students are engaged. So that idea of flexibility is really designed initially to really open up those pathways and opportunities for individuals with disabilities, both cognitive and physical, but at the same time, universal design really appeals to all students because it makes your space be more of a responsive space, and it allows your space to really engage with your students instead of just being that brick and mortar, lovely 1950s kind of look. Universal design also reduces barriers to instruction, provides appropriate accommodations, which again, we need to be doing just good practice in education, and because the 6 civil rights laws tells us we need to, and supports and challenges and maintains high achievement expectations for all students, including students with disabilities and who are limited English proficient. So this idea of universal design and what it will mean to your classrooms, what it will mean to your institutions, is something that really we're going to be rolling out with Perkins V. So as we move into, right now we are neck deep in state planning. We are really neck deep in that idea of what is the state going to do to address Perkins V. But there are a lot of things that the law has said, such as universal design, that we're going to start rolling out some nuggets of professional development on, because it helps you be aware as you're planning into 2020 as well. So keep these in mind, and also be on the lookout for some great professional development that's coming. The other fun in highlights the impact equity, and these are just kind of stated every time we talk about special pops and every time we talk about non-trad, because again, non-trad is a special pop, but it is the one that has a core indicator attached with it. But we're going to have an increase of funding for serving the state institutions that moves from 1% to 2%. Again, that's been around for some time. It's just a slight increase. There's a change in the leadership set-asides that assist eligible recipients in providing services. So that's exciting. And as I said, there is a definite purpose that local funds need to be used to support special populations and students pursuing non-traditional fields. And then we're going to add, or the federal government has added, set-asides for recruiting special populations into CTE. And that's exciting as well. We kind of covered that already, but again, it's a really fun highlight. And then one of the exciting things is when we have that core indicator, it is not going to be set in negotiations with the feds. It's going to be set by our state. So that's really exciting, because then we're competing against ourselves. And if any of you are one of those people who are a runner, and I'm a poser, I'm not a real runner, but I do like to pretend that I can run. And the idea is that you're performing against yourself, that how do you beat your PR? How do you do better? And that's really what the federal government has set up for the states, is that we're going to set our own measurements, and then we'll be able to compete against ourselves, which is really exciting. So with that, again, I want to offer some time for questions. Okay, seeing no hands raised, we'll just keep moving forward. I want to tell you a little bit about some upcoming professional development that we are offering at ICSPS. I also want to kind of just wrap up the day, and we'll get to that. So upcoming professional development, we do have all of these are applicable to all of you. Preparing students with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder, for college and careers, April 26th. That is tomorrow. It's in Bloomington. We are sort of at capacity, but if you're anxious to get in and have nothing to do on a Friday, let me know and we'll try to get you in there. We will be providing additional professional development around that, as well as featuring those resources at our Special Population Symposium. So if you can't make it on April 26th, you're going to get a small little snapshot of that on June 4th. CTE Counseling Academy, if you have been a part of that, or if you have not and want to be, we're going to be looking at culturally responsive learning. We're also going to be looking at the role of self-efficacy in culturally responsive learning, because really that idea of self-efficacy is the one way that we can really make an impact with our students. This particular professional development event is designed for student service personnel, academic advising personnel, school counselors, teachers. I think would get a lot out of it as well, though it is specifically kind of going to be focused more to the counseling and secondary and post-secondary career and technical education individuals, so that will be exciting. And then June 4th, we're having our Special Pop Symposium. We will be focusing on not only what has been done within the states, we're going to be showcasing the great work that all of you have been doing with your student support funds, but in addition to that, we're going to be bringing in some experts on how the post-secondary system can really support homeless youth. What are those things that we need to be doing to support homeless youth, as that is a new special population? What are those things that we can kind of enhance for our new special populations? And because some of these we've done pretty well. And then finally, my favorite conference of all time, the Forum for Excellence, which is September 20, I believe it's the 24th and 25th, but it's the 23rd, I have a typo there. And that is going to be here in Normal, Illinois, and right now we are opening up for calls for presentations. So please do submit any innovative and exciting work that you're doing around integration, transition, Perkins, all of that fun stuff. Apprenticeships, all of that great stuff. With that, what questions do you all have for me? Okay, no reason to keep us here if we don't need to be. So really looking at non-trad, oh, we did have a question pop up. Looking at non-trad, the big difference is, yes, the CTE Counseling Academy will be appropriate for career navigators. So I think that'd be a great opportunity for them. Again, it's going to be culturally responsive learning, which is something that is not just for CTE. It's actually being embraced across all curricula, understanding what it means to be culturally responsive and really taking a look at yourself to understand how you are interacting with your students. So career navigators would be fantastic for them, Tom. Any other questions? Okay. I do want to thank you all for your time today. I do want to kind of highlight that there's not a huge change for non-trad, but there are some nice small tweaks. And the nice small tweaks are going to influence the way in which we really have to report our data. So that idea of having 5P1 and 5P2 or 5S1 and 5S2 and looking at that enrollment versus completion and what is a completer and all of that fun stuff is now gone. So that's kind of a nice relief, especially for all of you who have to look at that stuff. But it also is really what is a concentrator. So how do we really expand who is participating as a non-traditional student? If you're looking at recruitment strategies, if you're looking for how to retain students, we have some great documents on that. Looking at the super strategies for recruitment and retention for non-traditional occupations. We also did a webinar last fall in November on that subject matter as well. So if you're interested in that, please go back and look at that. All of our previous webinars are recorded and they're all available on our website. And so I do encourage you to look at that because I didn't repeat that same webinar. I kind of looked at what's new for non-trad. In addition, we will be having a non-traditional summit in 2020. So we'll be focusing on that. And it's going to be a focus throughout the year is special populations and how we can support, recruit, and retain our non-traditional and special population students. So with that, oh, I had one more question. The new non-trad list will probably take about 3 years to get completed in my experience. Sorry, the question is, when is the new non-trad list going to come out and how will that impact Perkins? The new non-trad list does take a while to come out. So I would say we're not going to see that until they'll start those conversations next week. I'm at the National Summit for Educational Equity, and I know we're going to be discussing what those look like. But in addition to that, it's going to take about 3 years to get that finalized. It traditionally has. Possibly they're going to move faster because technology has improved. But in my experience, the one from 2010 did not get finalized and listed till 2013. So based on experience, and same for the 2000, SIPS 2000 was not out until 2003. So based on that, I would say we're not going to see it until 2023. Any other questions? If you do think of something as you're progressing through your day, or if there's something that you would like to have some professional development on around non-trad, please contact me. Let us know. We are here to assist you and support you in any way. Also, you have a fantastic resource with your ICCB CTE liaisons, so be sure you reach out to them as well. They are there to assist you in understanding this transition through Perkins 5. And I promise you, they're not going to spring anything crazy on you and say, oh, this is due tomorrow, please turn in all of this. That's not the way they work. They're here to assist you in the implementation and this transition period. And we are looking at a transition year for FY20. So with that, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And we will sign off. Have a great day.